Hi, Jackie and Janine, the Pfeiffer sisters, and love to talk about the 1950s, inviting you to reminisce with us as we explore experiences of that decade. Grab your favorite malt or Green River. Make sure you are wide awake and get ready to be inspired about the 1950s. Welcome to the 1950s Fun Chat. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the new year, 2024. My goodness, Jackie, the amazing things that happened in 2023, unbelievable things, and certainly in the lives of our family members, so many instances of life, you might say, that occurred without even any idea that they would have occurred in 2023. I guess that's what life is all about, isn't it? And today, our special guest tells us about special memory for us as we grew up in North Dakota. So take it away, Jackie.
All right, but before we start with the details, I would like to again remind people to look at the bottom line. You see a purple banner that says www.whilethewindmillwatch.com. So we encourage you to go to that site. There you will find information about the book, which is While the Windmill Watch, about the vendors where the book is sold, about the authors, about our events, and of course about the 1950s Fun Chat. This is number 121.
It is.
And yes, so you have many hours of watching, should you want to do that.
I've encouraged people too. So when you're traveling down the road, you need to watch them. Just turn them on and listen to them. And it will certainly help pass the time as you're driving.
A good point. Upper right-hand corner of the screen, take a look at the book that spurred the 1950s Fun Chat. That is a beautiful North Dakota sunset on the cover. And then you'll notice a little white spot in the lower right-hand corner. The book was published in 2021. This little award was given to us in 2022 as the Independent Press Award for the Regional Nonfiction category. And of course, we speak of a region in North Dakota. And so that was called the Distinguished Favorite. So we were honored with that. All right, I will begin now by introducing you to Cindy Solberg. Cindy is originally from Crosby, North Dakota, but currently lives in Bismarck, where she is the lead tour guide in the capital. She has she's an alumna of University of North Dakota. She's been guiding capital tours for 7 years. Her favorite part of the job is meeting people from all over the world. So Cindy, we welcome you to the 1950s Fun Chat.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me. It'll be fun to talk about some of the tie-ins to the period that you ladies are familiar with, the Christmas decorations at the Capitol, and then some of the history behind that.
Right. I am going to preface our chat with Cindy with a little background information. The 1950s Fun Chat evolved 5 months after the book While the Windmill Watched, A Slice of Rural America in the 1950s was published. Now, the chat follows two criteria. Guests were either born in the 1950s or influenced by the 1950s. However, today's topic involves not a person, but a structure, the Skyscraper Capitol of building of North Dakota. Now, Cindy is the voice of that proud complex on the Northern Prairie. So let's begin our chat, Cindy. After the fire consumed North Dakota State Capitol building, which was in 1933, the present building was occupied was 1930, occupied in 33, which was a short period of time. So why did the North Dakota decision makers decide to build the skyscraper?
Well, we had gone and looked at the state capitals in Louisiana and Nebraska, which also have towers. And while visiting there, we discovered that if we did the straight lines of a tower, we'd be able to use about 80% of the space, where a more standard domed capitol, it uses about 40%. So we were able to use almost all the space of the building. And I mentioned Louisiana, Nebraska, there are only 4. The 4th one is the one in Florida. And because we have the straight lines, like I said, we can use about 80% of the space.
Oh, very good. That's very very thoughtful of those decision makers. So,
Right. Wise.
what is the origin of the term? And this may be, I need correction on this, skyscraper on the prairie or skyscraper of the prairies. What is the correct term there?
It's usually referred to as the skyscraper on the prairie. And that nickname comes from the fact that the land for our building was donated by the railroad. And then the railroad itself went farther south, so the town of Bismarck stayed farther south. So the Capitol building until the 1950s was out in the country, basically. So here is this skyscraper out on the prairie. In fact, I have one of my favorite photographs of the Capitol. There's actually a horse pasture, and you can see the horses on the pasture just kind of watching. So yeah, it took a long time for the rest of Bismarck to encompass the Capitol.
Yes, yes.
That reminds me of what my dad said. He used to own land just north of the Capitol. So I don't know exactly what property, but that made an impression on me as a little girl. So Janine, do you have something you wanted to ask?
Well, I wanted to also introduce the fact that where our farm was and where we grew up in the 50s, it was 10 miles east of Bismarck. And consequently, that windmill was included the towering steps that Jackie climbed so that she could get to the top of the windmill to see the top of the Capitol building. There was nothing in the way of her viewing that. And so that was kind of a personal memory for us that we note in the book.
Exactly. So during the certain times of the year, the Capitol windows commemorate holidays such as Easter, Christmas, the New Year, and more. So tell us when this tradition began and how the effects are achieved.
Okay. Well, the first Christmas lighting at the Capitol was a cross. And it was done by pulling blinds down in some rooms and leaving the blinds open and lights on in other rooms. And then in the 1940s is when they started doing the Christmas tree similar to what we see today. And originally that was done with frames that had red and green crepe paper in them. And so someone would put the frame into the window at night, and then they could be taken down in the morning so that people could continue to work easily. And then in the let me double check my years here, but in the 1950s, they started using window shades, and they're like a cellophane window shade. And then those are pulled down during the evening and then put back up in the morning so it doesn't distract the workers.
There we go.
Does that cellophane ever rip? Did it ever rip at the time so that the window shade had to be repaired?
Oh, yes, many times, many times. And in fact, the ones that are used today were purchased in 1993. So they're even getting to show some age.
Yes. And where does one purchase that type of window shade made of cellophane?
Well, although I work for the facility management department, I don't know the answer to that.
That just came on the top of my head. But look at those beautiful windows and how creative they are to celebrate a certain event. My goodness. And tell us about this one of 20. I know we're veering from the 50s, one from 2010, where it's not just the north and the south windows of the Capitol that have the time commemorated, but we've also gone to the east and west windows.
Yes, it started out that the tree was always on the north and south sides, and then the year was always on the north and south side. And then let me just double check here on my dates, but it was in the mid 1970s when they started doing the New Year numbers. Okay. And then in the 1980s is when they started doing all four sides.
One thing that was very impactful in my life in the 1950s, and probably Jackie for you too, is when New Year's Eve, Mom and Dad would celebrate and go out for the evening at the Elks Lodge, where Dad was a member, and they'd go with friends. And Jackie and I would stay overnight with Grandma Pfeiffer on North 11th Street, and they would take us by the lights of the Christmas tree showing in the Capitol building. I always thought that was so amazing. But then the next day, voila, it was the year there was no more Christmas tree. And so that really made an impression on me as a little girl. But listening to you in before our chat, it's been so neat to hear about the many different occasions in which the North Dakota State Capitol celebrates during the months of the year. Can you tell us about some of those?
Well, it's kind of funny in some of the historical documents, it'll talk about how it almost became a walking advertisement. I was reading where they had a Kiwanis convention in the Capitol building, and they lit it up with a great big capital K. And so, of
Oh,
course, nowadays we're a little more selective about the events that are getting that kind of treatment. But we do the thin blue line for the Peace Officers Memorial in the fall, and that's where the top two floors are lit with blue shades. And we of July, uh, and any other major event, like with Bismarck's anniversary, they'll put 100 up there. The
there we
state
go.
anniversary, they did that as well.
Yes. And is that lighted on all sides of the building or just the south side or south and north sides?
Which one? The thin blue line?
Yes. And even then, there's the one Jackie's holding, North Dakota 125.
That would normally be just on the south side, so you'd see it coming from downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And then the thin blue line goes all the way around.
Okay. How far a distance away can those lights be seen? If Jackie was still climbing that windmill tower, could she see those lights?
Well, I'm just kind of thinking about it because with the city built up the way it is today, that you don't have as many places where you have that clear line of sight as you would have when you guys were remembering this from.
Mhm.
So yeah, you would be able to see it from a long way away, but there's trees and things in the way today.
Okay.
So you have to get pretty close.
When we first became acquainted with each other, and as far as your position at the Capitol and as a tour guide, I was quite enthralled with the fact that you even told me rather, more information about the holiday decorating in the Capitol building other than the lights on through the windows. Can you tell us more about that, how the Capitol is decorated for the season, the holiday season?
Yeah, originally they would have a live tree set up in Memorial Hall, and then fire code has changed a little bit so that if you want to have a tree with lights on it, you do need to have an artificial tree. So in the early 2000s, we purchased an artificial tree for the Capitol, and we have 40-foot ceilings in there. So the tree itself is 26 feet tall. And then to even and balance that out, it is 13 feet wide. So you actually have to walk around it when you are walking in Memorial Hall.
Oh my, oh my goodness.
We also have on the ground level different departments, different state departments. We do a hall of trees, and any department that wants to can set up a tree. And usually they're sponsored by nonprofits, and they'll ask for donations of mittens or things for food pantries, stuff like that.
Okay.
Also, we have since the early 2000s, we've also been having a menorah on display.
Mhm.
And that is to represent the spirit of inclusion and diversity and no conflict between religions, which seems kind of timely this year with some of the things that are going on in Israel right now.
Yes, for sure. How are those ornaments acquired for the giant Christmas tree?
Yeah, all the ornaments are handmade.
Mm,
And it is a project of the First Lady. And each year, the First Lady will come up with a theme for the tree, and starting in November, we'll ask for donations. And we'll have classrooms and clubs that will all make the same ornament. We have people who will make one ornament and send in. And then we always make a point of putting those around that bottom half of the tree, right about eye level, so people can come in and look for the ornament that they made, which the kids love to do.
Yes.
And then we save some of the handmade ornaments from the other years, and then those go up toward the top. But there's literally thousands of ornaments on that tree and they're all handmade.
Who is responsible for decorating that tree and undecorating it?
That is facility management,
Oh
and
dear.
it takes a couple good days to get it all done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. They'll have one of those scissor lift um, platforms,
Mhm.
and then they'll have a long stick with a hook on the end, and they'll be leaning over the platform
Oh.
one by one with those ornaments.
Is there a tree topper that for that tree?
We have a ribbon. There's a red bow at the top of the tree.
Okay.
Oh.
When I think of tree toppers, I guess we didn't conclude about the Christmas tree lighted in the window. There's that tree topper that goes on top of that. Tell us about that.
Oh, the star, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a metal star that's been handmade, and it has lights around the outside. And it basically, what they'll do is it's laying flat on the roof of the Capitol throughout the rest of the year, and they'll push it up straight,
Oh.
and then it's propped up and connected. And then again after Christmas, then they'll just flip it back down, and it'll lay on top of the roof until next year.
Okay. Has-
And when those stars, we're still using the framework from the original star, which was from the 1930s.
okay.
But there was some replacement work done and improvements to it done in the 80s and also the early 2000s. But those stars are the center of the star is about 16 feet, just the
Mm.
center of it. So just to give you some idea of how big they are. And those were actually transported to the Capitol, to the roof, using a helicopter from the National Guard.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And when it does the official lighting of the Christmas tree on the outside occur each year?
The governor will do the official Christmas lighting, and it's giving
Thanksgiving? Okay. Just right after
Tuesday after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So it'd
And
be usually around December 2nd, something like that.
the size of the bulbs in that tree topper must be large or luminous, or how many watts are in each one of those bulbs?
Well, originally, they didn't have the funds. There was no allocation of funds to do it. So it was an electric company from Bismarck that donated or actually lended out lights, and we had to give them back when we were done. And there was a newspaper article that requested that people stop stealing the light bulbs from the trees on the grounds. So, of course, those didn't belong to the Capitol yet. They were the electrical companies. And eventually, then those were replaced with LED bulbs. That was what was done in the 2000s.
Is there a Christmas tree topper for the tree on the north side of the building also that shows?
Yes, there's one on both the north and south sides.
All righty.
They thought of everything. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have been a guide for 7 years.
Yeah.
What kind of training did you have, and how did you elevate to the lead guide?
Okay. Well, in my past life, I was doing adult education for Bismarck State College for over 20 years. And I was still doing that. That was kind of my main job. But of course, in the summer, there wasn't that much going on. And so I had seen this advertisement for a summer temporary tour guide. And that's what I had applied for. And by that fall, somebody else had left. And so I took that position. And now that is my primary job. We do have two main tour guides, and we treat the position as a job share. So I'm there 3 days 1 week and 2 the next, and then 3, so forth. As far as lead tour guide, I do the training of the tour guides. I am usually the one who's going to do interviews and work on some of the various projects. For example, we added in an outdoor tour we started last fall, and we're going to continue that this summer. And so I'm the one kind of responsible for arranging and setting up and designing things like that.
So how many tour guides do you have in total, part-time?
There's the two main ones, and then we have a backup that's on call.
Oh, okay. And so do you give the new ones then, you train them, do you give them a script, a suggested script or suggested topics, or how does that work?
We have basically index cards like we used to do back in speech class.
Okay.
And those list, okay, what wood is here, what wood is there, what is the wall covering, pointing out details that we should mention, some of the historical dates. So there's kind of that reference, and usually someone will use those for about 2 weeks, and then they'll kind of start to do their own flavor of tour, but with those basic guidelines in place.
What is
So whether you come to my tour or Bob's tour, they're basically going to be the same material, just maybe a different presentation, if that makes sense.
What is the wall covering inside the camp?
In Memorial Hall, we have what's called Yellowstone travertine, and it comes from Montana. And the Capitol building was one of the first major buildings in the country to use this Yellowstone travertine. And the really cool detail about it is that these pieces have been cut into slabs, but all the slabs were labeled on the back. So when they were attached to the wall, they were put back in order like a giant puzzle.
Cool.
So you can follow the vein of the stone and follow it all the way up to that 40-foot ceiling.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, the attention to detail in that building is just phenomenal.
I guess.
What is the most unusual question you have had asked of you as a tour guide?
In the Supreme Court, which is in our newer edition, the Judicial Wing, we have sheep's wool covering the walls, and that's part of acoustics. It's done for acoustics. I had an adult ask me if the sheep were the color that the wool is on the wall, which is almost like a burgundy purple color.
Okay. Yeah.
More than
So I said, of course, I said yes. And so I've been imagining this lady driving through North Dakota looking for those purple sheep ever since. No, I didn't do that.
That would be unusual, I would think, for a breed of sheep to have burgundy colored wool. But how interesting. How do they clean it then? Surely it's got to accumulate.
They actually, when they do the floors, they also vacuum the walls. They use a canister vac, and they also do the walls.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Yes.
North Dakota can be done.
And when tourists come to the state capitol, they're from North Dakota, they're from other states. Are they from other countries as well?
Oh, yes. Yes, we get probably the most visited countries would be England, Norway, Germany. We get people from South America, Iceland. Pretty much, if you can think of the country, we've had people from Africa. Yeah, it's amazing.
So, Cindy, are you allowed to divulge some secrets of, if there are any secrets in the Capitol, such as other small passages or secret passages or small hallways in the Capitol building that the public is not really aware? Do you know?
Well, I think the first one that would come to my mind would be what we call the monkey room. And the monkey room was originally the private entrance for the Secretary of State. So it's just this little tiny foyer. And the wood in there comes from California, and it's something called California walnut. It's extremely rare. And then the ironic thing is that this tree was sent here by accident. So it shouldn't have even been here in Bismarck. So a woodworker from Grand Forks went in there with his magic skills, and the way he put the wood panels together, we can see animal faces. So we can see monkeys, we can see horses, there's even one we call Garfield the cat. So
Okay.
that's kind of a favorite one, and we do include that in the tour.
Oh, neat.
I think one of the coolest areas that's not part of the tour is there's a basement. And in the basement are the original walk-in vaults. And they have the really fancy Art Deco exterior. And I bet the panel to open them is probably the size of a dinner plate with a combination. And also, where the House and Senate are, if you're down in the basement, you can go underneath the building and actually see the cement pylons that hold the building up.
Interesting. Is that considered underneath the House and Senate? Is that considered a safe area then for where the legislators would go, or does it have a purpose of for people for safety?
Currently, it's used for storage.
Okay.
Mhm.
It is interesting, though, as mentioning these vaults, there's lots of other fireproof storerooms. And one of the things that you guys would probably relate to is when you open the metal door, there's that nuclear war sign. Like
Mm.
it's a safe spot to protect you. Do you know what
Okay.
I'm talking
Sure,
about?
just
What does it
yes,
look
yes.
like? It's got three dots, I think. It's a
Mhm.
triangle. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so those rooms are designed to be Cold War safety places.
Mhm.
Yes. And they're still kept up then with that purpose in mind, those rooms?
They're used for storage, but there is ample room in there. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And is there a tunnel or underground tunnel that connects the governor's mansion to the Capitol building or not?
Not the governor's mansion, but there is a tunnel that goes between the Department of Transportation and the tower. And
Oh,
so you can actually go underground from one building to the other, but the governor's office isn't included in that.
Mm. And why was that built? Why did the powers that be feel that that was necessary?
That is one of the safe places for the people that work in the judicial wing and the Department of Transportation. So if there's not a fire drill, a tornado drill,
hmm
Mm.
or a storm warning that we have to go underground
Mhm.
somewhere,
hmm
that's what
Okay.
it's used for.
Okay.
But I'm backtracking here. When the Capitol was originally built, and in the tower, was every space designated for a certain department for the state of North Dakota?
But part of the reason the building was finished as quickly as it was is they left the upper floors unfinished.
Oh.
So
Okay.
originally, not all the floors were occupied and used,
Uh-huh.
and then eventually those were getting finished, and then they were being leased out. So they were sometimes there were different federal agencies located
Mhm.
in leasing space in the building.
What?
Currently, it's all North Dakota.
Okay. How many floors were originally finished?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question. I love that question because the idea of a skyscraper was new in the 1920s,
Uh-huh.
and the definition of a skyscraper at that time was a building with at least 20 floors.
Okay.
So we have 20 floors and that basement I was telling you about.
So
Okay.
I've
To,
heard there were
but to
21. 19
With
and
the
then
basement, it
21.
would be 21.
Okay.
Yeah, with the basement.
That's a
The 20th floor doesn't have any windows. And
mhm.
that's basically where the mechanical and the housing for the elevators is.
Oh, it's up
Mhm.
And
above.
the original water container that would help with the water pressure to be able to flush the toilets.
Ah, interesting.
This question just came to mind. When we were little, there were elevator attendants, and they would stand out, and then the cage would shut. They would shut the cage. When did that? When were they no longer employed? The elevator attendants.
I believe, and I'd have to guess here, but I'm guessing it was late 1990s, early 2000s.
Oh,
So
Oh,
so
they used
that
it
was
for
quite
quite
a
a
while.
while.
yes.
Yeah. And then the elevators have since been replaced. There's brand new elevators in the building today,
Mhm.
and they're called smart. elevators. So
Okay.
the buttons are on the outside. So you'll put in your floor on the outside, it will send you to the most efficient elevator. So it'll group people together by where they're going in the building. So it's supposed to be about 50% more efficient at moving people around the building.
Are they
Okay.
a faster elevator? Are they a faster elevator as well?
Yes, from ground floor to the observation deck, it is 11 seconds. It's traveling about 25 miles an hour.
Ooh, have
Woohoo.
any of the tourists ever gotten sick by going up there or coming down in that elevator?
I've never had anybody get sick, but I do have some people that refuse to go on the elevators.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe they'll go on the elevator to the observation deck, but then they won't even go anywhere close to the windows.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. When people want to come and visit the Capitol, do they need to schedule a tour?
No, not at all.
Okay.
We offer them on the hour. First one is at 9, and then we do one at 10, 11, and then 1 o'clock, 2, and 3 in the afternoon.
All right.
And
So,
in the summer, between starting Labor Day weekend and going through Memorial Day weekend, or vice versa, I guess. But we also do full hours on Saturday and 1 o'clock, 2, and 3 on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
is the meeting point at the door?
Yes, there's at the main entrance is on the southeast side of the Capitol. Do you guys remember where there used to be a tunnel you drive
Yep.
through?
Right.
So that has been converted into the main entrance now. And then you go in through security and the information desk is right there. You just let someone know you want to do a tour. And they take about 35 to 40 minutes.
And how large a tour group can you accommodate?
When we have tour buses, we try and keep it between 25 and 30, but
Okay.
I've done tours as large as 50.
Mhm.
But, if you want to be able to hear, that gets pretty
Oh,
tough.
yes.
Mhm.
And handicap accessible, I'm sure, is
Yes, 100%.
not a problem. Yes. I'm thinking of the statue of who I'm going to call her Sakakawea, who
Right.
that is
Yeah.
outside of the Capitol, on the Capitol grounds. Is that the proper pronunciation? Is that the North Dakota pronunciation? Is that the Lewis and Clark pronunciation? Tell us about that statue.
Yeah, well, our pronunciation comes from Lewis and Clark staying with the Mandans. The two winters they were in North Dakota, they were living with the Mandans. And in the Mandan language, there isn't a soft G sound. So they wouldn't have said Sacagawea. I can't even say it right. But, she was a Shoshone.
Mhm.
So the politically correct is Sacagawea,
Oh,
and our pronunciation is the Mandan,
Okay.
the Sakakawea.
And
Mhm.
I looked that up.
Sakakawea.
I had a discussion with a fellow teacher one time. He's from Nebraska, and he said that his way was the correct way. So I looked it up in the dictionary, and yes, Sacagawea or whatever is the way we pronounce it in North Dakota. Sakakawea is the second pronunciation. So
Well, Lewis and Clark had 7 spellings for her name.
oh, 7.
So no, I don't think anybody actually knows for sure because if we have to go by Lewis and Clark's journals, and they had so many different spellings. At times, they even called her Janie just to keep it easy.
Oh,
Janie, yes, I guess
interesting.
I've
I've
heard
never
that.
heard that before.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's easier.
Yes. The and we had talked earlier as well that our mom, Jackie's and my mother, had worked in the state capitol, when she was a young unmarried lady, and that's the reason that she came to Bismarck to live there, was to work there as a secretary, and she was involved in that secretarial job in 2 different offices. She came in 1934, and I think we had talked about those offices, which were at the time the North Dakota Workmen's Compensation Bureau, and also the World War II Office of Price Administration. And so you said that those offices have been relegated different terms, and they are no longer in the Capitol. Can you tell us about that?
Well, yeah, workforce safety is what workers' comp is called now, and they are in a different building. They're not in the Capitol itself. And then I think the purchasing one, or the I think it's called purchasing now, and I believe it's part of the Office of Management and Budget.
And okay,
It's
and
kind of
that,
interesting though how some of those department names have changed over the years.
So tell us about the New Year's Eve ball that my mom and dad went to. We've heard. How was that sponsored, and when did it start and when did it end? Do you know anything about that or not?
No, you guys know more about that than I do. Yeah, I'd love to know more about that. Yeah, Janine, you should tell about what your mom wore.
oh, Jackie could really tell us because she still
Oh, okay.
owns that dress.
I don't know
That's
if it was
right.
just
Yeah.
a black dress, simple, sleeveless, and then there was a cape that matched it with
Ooh.
it was very kind of intricate stitching on the top of it with little tucks and pleats. So I do still have that dress, and I always thought, oh, mom had this tall, statuesque, lovely model figure. I thought, wow, she must have been a knockout in that dress.
Well, she would buy
Oh, man.
salesman samples of clothing too, and her
Right.
wardrobe was stunning.
Mhm.
From what
Very
I
high quality, yeah,
yes.
because she had the right measurements.
Yeah. And so, did she ever tell you, Jackie, about that ball? What she and Dad did there? This would have been in the early 40s, probably, or late
Right,
30s.
would have been. No, I guess I can't. It doesn't. I can't recall right now, except that it was New Year's Eve at the Capitol in that beautiful hall. Yeah. So whenever whenever we go to Bismarck, we usually visit the Capitol. I just love that building, and there's so many memories
Yeah.
in it. Oh, and do then, if you can, tell us about the hall where all those photographs are, and of the famous people that are pictured
Oh,
there.
yeah. We have what's called the Rough Rider Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And the Rough Rider Hall of Fame is named after Theodore Roosevelt and his Rough Riders. It's the highest award that North Dakota gives. And to be in the Hall of Fame, you would be someone who's lived in North Dakota, don't have to necessarily be born and raised, but have lived in North Dakota, and then have gone on to do something with your life's work that reflects North Dakota in a positive way. And those are all done through the governor's office. Applications are done through the governor's office. And then the governor, Secretary of State, and Director of the Historical Society are the ones who make the determination. And there's currently 49 members in the Rough Rider Hall of Fame.
Okay. And how often are new ones added, or does it just depend upon the applications?
It depends on the person. Typically, it's been one per governor term. But when the first award first happened, there were 4 inducted the first year. So there have been there's been some variation in that.
Who were the first 4? Do you happen to recall?
The first 4 would be Lawrence Welk was the first.
Okay.
And there's trying to think who's next to him.
Patty Page? Was she?
Dorothy Stickney from Dickinson. She starred on Broadway.
And what about the lady who had so many children?
Yep, she's about in the middle. She had 18 children. She was named the American Mother of the Year back in 1968. So of all the mothers in the U.S.
Yeah.
And part of her portrait that's really fun is there's a baseball team at the bottom because their town team, Velva, was made up entirely of her kids. And then the dad was the coach. So they were a very famous baseball team here in North Dakota in the 60s.
And so
60s and 70s.
Is Clint Hill one of the last ones?
Yes, he's one of the most recent. And then after him, it's been Dr. Stuttgart that started the International Music Camp. And then most recently this fall was Virgil Hill, who's an Olympic boxer. And he lives in California now, but he's still very involved in doing training and events on some of the Native American lands here in North Dakota.
Was President Roosevelt, does he occupy that space? Teddy
Teddy
Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt is the very first portrait, and his is larger than all the other ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very, very much like his personality, larger than everybody else.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Cindy, this has been delightful to learn so much history
bet.
about the North Dakota State Capitol building. It's an especially deja vu time for Jackie and me to have visited with you about the lights, especially this season, that are showing through the windows of the Capitol building, rather, the holiday lights and whatever. And, oh, viewers, if you have any comments, we'd love to read your comments and be able to see the stories and hear of the stories that you have, having been on a trip to the Capitol or actually viewing those lights on the outside. Cindy, thank you very much. This has been
My
just
pleasure. Yeah.
Before we let her
My
go, I
pleasure.
have one last question, which is
Okay,
appropriate for
please.
the end. What is the most often heard comment at the end of your tour?
Uh, since we're one of only 4 towers, people are kind of attached to the idea that the Capitol should have a dome, and we've never had one here in North Dakota.
Mhm.
So when they come in, they're just not really sure what to expect. But once we take them through and show them the exotic woods, the beautiful travertine, all the little Art Deco details. Art Deco was actually inspired by the finding of King Tut's tomb in the 1920s. So we have a couple Egyptian-looking things that we show. And almost every single time when we're done, people say, I just wasn't sure, but I'm so glad I came in. This building is fabulous. And so I
Isn't
think
it?
as a North Dakota citizen, we should all be extremely proud of the heritage of this building.
That is
Right.
correct. Yes, thank you.
hmm
Thank you very much. Jackie, can you close our program, please?
Oh, viewers, we hope you enjoyed this little chat as much as we have, and that you learned something from it. That is one of the main reasons we have the fun chat. So, because Janine and I are lifelong learners, and we really do appreciate people encouraging us and helping us with our education.
Yes.
So,
and theirs as well.
and there's as
yours as well, yes.
So viewers, look at the red button that said subscribe. Please touch that. And also the blue thumbs up button. And until next time, tell your friends, even your relatives, about the 1950s Fun Chat. Toodaloo.